Welcome back, Louis. It was good to talk to you last time. And this time, I wonder if you could tell us about your experiences as a military attaché in Southeast Asia. Thanks.
Thank you. I want to start off by saying, can you imagine the situation in our household starting preparing to go out of the country to become a military attaché in Southeast Asia? I'd never been in that direction. When they initially informed me that I am going that side, the person speaking to me was referring to, you are going to KL. And I thought, what is KL? So at the end, that was now Kuala Lumpur. And I was still at Luatla at the Combat Training Center, the Chief of Staff. And I asked the commandant, the general of the CTC, is she aware that I am transferred and staff? She said, yeah, I know it a long time, but I can't release you now. You must first finish the budget. So it was that time of the year. So I very quickly get the staff together and we work on the budget and I hand it over and I proceed to Pretoria and prepare and then the movement arrangements and then we went over to Southeast Asia. Arriving there, you couldn't believe it in the beginning that we are now there, away from field exercises, field fires. All those things from the CTC was now something of the past. And now you are part of an attaché, defense attaché corps in a foreign country, and they call it, we call it the MAC, the Military Attaché Group of Corps, and you quickly start interacting with people. All being new, they all want you to join with them at their residence, and they want to know more about you. And at the end of the day, you feel so much part of that family that very soon you didn't even realize that you are in a different work environment.
Sorry, Louis, could I just ask you, did they give you like any formal training and things like that before you went abroad?
Yes, for sure. No, there's a number of selections. First, you are selected in the army. Thereafter, your name is on a short list on the defense list. And then you do another selection. And then you only go on course. And after the course, and during the course, you do a country profile where you work on a country, and obvious that gives you an indication that that is the direction they want to send you. And in my case, it was Angola. So it made a lot of sense to me being in Angola and in Namibia involved. It makes sense. But then other guys get posted there. And for a time, I was not even in the picture. What is now happening? And then suddenly, I must go to KL. And from there, things work very fast. And the next day or the next moment, we are there, meeting up with people, only to learn that it is not only Malaysia, it is Indonesia, and it is Brunei, Darussalam. All three is my accredited countries, meaning if you are accredited, only two people in a mission gets accredited, and that is your High Commissioner or your ambassador and the military attaché. So I was fully accredited in those three countries, and like I said, I think in the past, also responsible for Singapore, because we have a mission there, but no military attaché, and also in Thailand. We do have embassy there, but no military attaché. And for a time, before my time in Malaysia, even Philippines, John, was part of the responsibilities of the office in Kuala Lumpur.
Sorry, you said it was Brunei, Indonesia, and
Malaysia, accredited.
Okay.
And then the two other non-accredited countries. But the moment there was a delegation visiting those countries, then I was part of the whole delegation. And doing what I was doing, you arrive there at least a week before them to get in the picture of what is happening and be ready to brief the delegation that is coming and to make appointments and get your transport arrangements in place so that when the delegation is there, that they can just execute their task. And then you become a part of that delegation.
When you heard that you were going to Southeast Asia, if you don't mind me asking, what did Charmaine say?
For the second time in my military career, she did not believe me. Just quickly, the first time I was still the second in command at infantry school, and I said to her, I had a talk today with the chief army. We are going to be transferred. She said, yeah, maybe somewhere to a place far from any cities and things like that. I said, no, we are actually going to a big town. The name of the town is Umtata. She said, where's Umtata? So she was not even aware in the Eastern Cape, where's Umtata? And at the end, we end up there, and she couldn't believe me in the beginning. And when I tell her we are on our way to KL, and it stands for Kuala Lumpur, she said, no. Where is that? And I must admit, I had to open up our atlas and look around and show her, and also orientating myself a bit, because shortly thereafter I proceed to Pretoria and start training and orientation and all that. So yeah, she couldn't believe it. And wonderful how fast the ladies include her in everything. And she was attending coffee mornings and National Day activities in the evening. So you are very fast becoming part of that and start adapting to your new role, far away from what she was used to, because she, from the beginning, was used to be either the second in command's wife or the commander's wife, and being responsible to look after our ladies and supporting our personnel. And now suddenly a total new role. But she adapts so fast. I was very proud. You know what? Indonesia is the largest Muslim country in the world due to their population numbers. Furthermore, the tolerance there for other religions was surprising. They were not bringing religion all the time to all our visits and things like that. The other beautiful part is they receive you so well, and they are easy people to work with, and they are very proud people, and their defense system is in place, and they pay a big attention to let the forces be ready, also to help with all the disasters and things that Indonesia experienced from time to time. That because they, with so many islands there, they are exposed to a lot of nature incidents and tsunamis and things like that. And their military is a model in my eyes for being trained for a secondary role to assist the community. And they are a developing country. The president is busy. He's in his second term, so he is really lifting a lot of things in Indonesia. So it was a good country to be visiting from time to time, and professional people, really professional people.
Yeah.
But I can say the same. Brunei was a small, or is a small country, but the soldiers and their officer corps or leadership corps, let me rather call it like that, is well trained and very sincere in approaching the task and extremely loyal um, to the country. And then it's nice. You will recall we said soldiers have that communal thing that we link up easy and we interact easy. And that was my experience in the South Asian or Asian regions, is how quick they accept you and interact with you in honesty, in brackets, uh, because they are also soldiers, so you deal with each other with respect, and that was very nice. And being so close to each other, you know, if you hear Southeast Asia, you think of a large countries and things like that, but it is an hour's flight from Malaysia to Indonesia to Brunei. I think it's just over an hour from Malaysia to the Philippines. Uh, Up to you, Mark, also about the hour. So everything is
Close, yeah.
and yeah, and it is first world transport systems. So there's a road almost right up to Taiwan. You can drive from Singapore through Malaysia, through to Thailand, and up north um, by road. And then there's the railroad systems is in every country very advanced. So yeah, it was easy to travel, and we did visit on a regular basis my countries of responsibility. So yeah, that was nice. One other thing that I want to you say, how did I find the time over there? Those countries that I was accredited to was very much into the defense industry, very advanced, hosting big expos. Many countries visited those countries or expos, and it was wonderful to meet up with the world defense industry agents and seeing the latest equipment. And for 5 years, that was your exposure. You you being directly involved with your delegation and accompanying them to those first class military equipment. And it was part of your task to identify those things and to arrange meetings and visits with your delegation to those agents so that we can share knowledge and experience or expectations, because sometimes we have a certain requirement, and it was my work to make sure that the agency is aware of what is the requirement so that they can address it when they brief our delegation, to save time and not to just be there like visitors. Uh, and that was very nice. South Africans stand out in Southeast Asia. You guys will know that. We are taller than in most of them, the other country people. And during expos and parades and things like that, you must realize that you are standing out. So if they want to take a photo, you are almost always in either background or they are focusing on you and taking photos. And then you are surprised where those photos end up. But that was the case. And the parade was of an extreme high quality. And I was the whole time, for 5 years, briefing our sergeant majors and the sergeant major of the army and as well as of the defense to say, bring a delegation of sergeant majors over and attend their preparations and parades, because the standard and the quality was very good. And because they are not directly in conflict situations, so they spend time on ceremonial things, on customs and practices in the units and in the defense system. Again, they pay attention to that more than a South Africa or a country in a physical conflict situation with neighboring countries. Although they Southeast Asian or the Asian group, they have their unique problems, the Southeast Asia or the China Sea, China Sea problems that they experience. John, you are aware of that, and how they convert coral reefs to little islands, and then to little landing strips, and then to defense hardpoints, and that is causing trouble and make people uneasy, and it is a situation of conflict from time to time that you experience. And as a foreigner, you pick up very quick if there's friction or conflict amongst the MAC delegation, because there's attaches from those countries. You interact from time to time socially, but now there's conflict between, for us, or there's been an accident, not the accident, the incident. Yeah, China would call it the accident, incident, and then you could feel there's something going on, and it's not that spontaneous. But all in all, it was a wonderful time representing our country and our defense leader group in the Southeast Asia. And sometimes you had to answer difficult questions in representing the country, but luckily there's always a backup. A 5-hour difference backup system. So if you need something quick, you cannot say, listen, I must quickly go somewhere and then phone and ask, because that 5-hour difference might that whoever you phone is not that willing to answer, and secondly, not always ready to answer. And that was a challenge from time to time. We were aware of some of the other MAC members. If something come up, you know he will now disappear, and he will get an answer, and then he will come back and then take part in the conversation, and because you have now permission to join and share. Difficult for us with the 5-hour difference, time difference.
Louis, I presume the military in Malaysia follows in some ways quite the drill and things like that is maybe quite British.
Yeah, they are a Commonwealth country, so yeah. And Indonesia, not that much. Indonesia have a bit of a different background and follow other doctrines, but in Malaysia, yes. And I want to say their main armament, their main weapon systems is coming from various countries, and our G5 cannon is used by Malaysia.
Yeah.
And that was a nice to talk to the people, the artillery people of Malaysia about the weapon system, and also what they would like to know more about, and things like that. And many of them being to South Africa for training and demonstrations on the weapon system. But so does all three the countries, and I think many of the Southeast Asia countries been to South Africa, and sometimes for holiday, but because the currency is so good, but also because they want to know more about the country.
Yeah. Here, the older, like if you like the older members of the military, I suppose now pretty much those that are approaching retirement age, you find that quite a lot of them spent time in South Africa, particularly kind of that period, very late 80s to about 1994. You find that quite a lot. The other thing is, interesting was with your time in Singapore. Singapore doesn't really have much in the way of territory. So Singapore uses Taiwan for its basically for its training, things. So it was, it was. I hadn't been in Taiwan very long, and I was out doing some bird watching, and suddenly, I mean, Taiwan has conscription, so you often see young guys in military uniform going around. I mean, there are military bases around where I live and things. I was out bird watching, and suddenly a section in camouflage came marching up the road. It was the middle of summer, so it was and it was lowland, kind of lowland jungle. And these guys came up. I mean, you could see them sweating and everything. And the guys see me there, and they stop me, and the guy says, "Hey," he pulls out a map, and he says, "Can I show you the map? Can you show me where we are?" And I'm kind of surprised because, I mean, this is 20 years ago. The guy's English is really good, but I kind of hear that the accent's not exactly right, for Taiwanese. And so I look at the map and I say, okay, we over here and things. And the other guys, there are about 5 or 6 of them, they start asking me questions. And the one guy, I presume, is like Pacifica indigenous, kind of indigenous Taiwan Aboriginal person. He suddenly starts talking English to me. And I'm like, whoa. And eventually I say to them, where are you guys from? Because I can't believe that this entire section is all fluent in English. And the guys say, no, we're from Singapore. And I look at them and say, what's the Singapore military doing here? No, we have a training camp up the road. And I was amazed. And then these guys were doing a route march, and they had to in South Africa we'd call them copies. There are all these different copies. And on the top of each copy is at the trig beacon, the military's put a chop. And so these guys had their map, and they would have to go there, and they would have to, when they got there, they'd take the stamp and stamp the map. So I got talking to these guys, and it was hot. I mean, it was horrific conditions. And I said, "Is there anybody up there where you have to go?" And he says, "No, there's just the stamp." So I said, "If you want, you can hop on the back of my scooter, and I'll run you up to all of these things." So the one guy jumped on the back, the others went and hid in the bamboo, and I took him up these various little hills. When he got to the top, he would stamp his map, came back, and these guys were happy. They said, "Yeah, we've got like 4 or 5 hours until we've got to be back. Now we're just going to go sleep, and we'll go back later." So it's pretty strange. Because Singapore doesn't even recognize Taiwan, but they have 2 big military training bases here. So,
Mark, what is very interesting, and might be of interest to you guys, is that when I was at the Combat Training Center at Loatla, Singapore was doing military training there. Very advanced, joint integrated training with modern equipment and very technical guys.
Yes,
high skilled. The equipment is of an extremely high standard, and working very hard. The heat didn't bother them in Loatla, although it's a different type of heat. But the temperature was not really a factor for them. Although they pay a lot of attention to drinking water and that health things. The other thing that when I first visited Singapore with a delegation, I met. He was then no longer the chief army. He was in the defense ministry environment. But met him, and he was so surprised because when he visited his troops in Loatla, we had time to discuss and have talks with him. A very extremely professional person. And the language in Singapore is English.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all their people is very fluent in English. And very technical on, excuse John, very good on computers. They would tell you, can they use your computer to prepare for this presentation? And in seconds, before you could imagine, they quickly offload a number of things on your hard drive. And no, professional guys. You must always be wake up when you work with Singapore people. John?
Yeah, when I was in, I'll probably edit this out, but when I was in Somerset West, living in Gordons Bay, I had a dojo. Somerset West, Gordons Bay, and Strand are like a metroplex, and I was teaching martial arts, and I had about, not a big dojo, I probably had about 10 students in Strand. We hired the Scout Hall there in Strand, and for some strange reason, I had students coming from Stellenbosch and as well. But for some strange reason, 8 out of the 10 students I had had PhDs, and I was teaching Japanese Japanese martial arts, teaching Japanese sword fighting, and 2 of my students, both PhD doctors, worked for Arms Corps or Donnell or AECI. I don't know what it's called nowadays, but anyway, the one guy was in charge of rocket propulsion systems for ballistic missiles, and he used to work on the fuel, a rocket fuel, and the other guy was in charge of warheads for ballistic missiles. And we had lots of interesting conversations where I told him about, during the Rhodesian War, how we invented a lot of our own munitions, and some of the warheads that we had on, like the Gulf bombs and that, with multiple, the Gulf bombs sort of scattered multiple little bomblets and whatever, which apparently is not allowed anymore. It's not part of the Geneva Convention anymore to have Gulf bombs, and I don't know if phosphorus and napalm and that kind of thing's allowed anymore either. But I was just wondering, were you a bit of a salesman for the South African arms industry? Is that part of your job, Louis, as a military attaché, selling G5s and things like that?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, that was not part of our scope of work. But it touches on one of our responsibilities. Is to look out and see where our defense industry can complement your host country defense system. So if you notice that they are in need of indirect fire long distance, then you will address it and promote what we have, and you will try and make appointments, or get somebody from South Africa and make an appointment and do a proper briefing about the systems that is available. And that is the practice, the activities that we all was involved with. So not selling, but exposing and directing the people to what is available, and to make it clear what is the advantages of your equipment. And that is something that was also quite important, not to talk too much about that, because once other guy here, they are looking for indirect weaponry systems, then he will also promote his country systems. And then you overload your host country with information and make it difficult to make a sound decision. So, yeah, but that was our role to play, and it was nice to have successes, and and get good feedback and being mentioned that thank you for introducing us to that and this. And they invite you also to demonstrations to show to you how they incorporate the weapon system into their doctrine and into their systems.
Yeah, in the Philippines, I'd noticed that almost every military and paramilitary branch, I'm talking about from the police all the way to the army to the Coast Guard, are very, very, very modeled on American. The way they do their drill, the way they salute, the way they wear their uniforms. Obviously, the Americans had a huge influence here in the Philippines, and 99% of the foreigners you meet here are also Americans. So it's interesting. As a South African, where our drill and weapons were very much orientated on the British Army, the way we salute and everything is probably a lot more similar to the South African Army than the Americans. They salute sort of differently, instead of like this, it's like that, like sailors, But that was quite interesting to me. And the only time I ever met a military attaché was in Cape Town. Every year, round about the beginning of December, I used to get invited to the Japanese embassy. Used to invite me to the Emperor's birthday party, round about the 5th of December. And I met the Japanese military attaché who'd flown down from Pretoria. Very nice guy, very friendly. But it's interesting how old soldiers, or even immediately plug into other soldiers, and you're almost instant friends, just because you're both ex-military.
That is a fact. That is a fact. Linking up and identifying other soldiers is, I don't want to say it's a skill, but it just naturally happens.
Yeah. If you airborne infantry and he's also, he's got his parachute wings or something, you immediately have a bond,
Yeah, no, for sure. And what I experience also from the Southeast Asian guys is that they are very proud of their uniform, and all of them went through a different type of career path than in South Africa or in Africa. We don't have the resources always to train all our members in parachute training and that type of training. But it seems to me that in Asia, the people focus, or the forces focus to expose their members to all different types of training, and many of them are trained divers, trained parabat members, and that differs from us.
Yeah.
Louis, sorry, carry on. Yeah.
Now, I want to say that the Singaporean people that did the training at the Luatla, they pay a lot of attention also to physical training, and not allowed, but most countries, when they do training at Luatla, in the week there's no liquor, but weekends it's like a 24-hour available for them. And our beer and Southeast Asia beer differ. There's a big difference in the alcohol percentage. So, and the Asian people is not that big, bold, that can stomach a lot of beers. So we usually brief the visiting groups to Luatla to say, your people might not be well known to the standard and the alcohol content of our beer. So keep a good eye on that. And usually the first weekend, the Friday, they will phone you late in the day and say, listen, it is Friday and we open up our facility at 12, but we need a bit of a replenishment now because the weekend is still ahead. And then when you arrive there, you can see they did open at 12. And good control, but that was interesting that the cultures differ in that sense. We will not allow too much drinking during training, and especially over weekends we do maintenance and get your equipment ready. But the Friday night and the Saturday night, there's time earmarked for socializing, and not during the day. But it was always interesting to see the effect of Black Label, our Zamaleks on visiting groups training there. And although I am very much impressed with the beverages from Southeast Asia, it is good, and you can see the defense systems is, you said British, American, so that is part of their practices and customs to have that available, and formal dinners and things like that is managed on a high level. Mark?
Yeah. Louis, was any of your duty like the protection of the embassy?
Yeah, Mark, you look into the safety system of your embassy, and being accredited to the other countries, also those embassies. So that was one of the things you do very early when you arrive there. You assess the security arrangements and systems, and you evaluate it throughout the year, and you report on that. Okay. And also to bring in new technology. So yes, it was part of that, although your defense system, no, your foreign relations system also pay a lot of attention to the security of the missions abroad.
With the like some like when you go to some countries and you visit embassies, you sometimes see uniformed military personnel of that country protecting the embassy. Does in Singapore, Malaysia, and that, did South Africa do that, or it's not really done?
No. There was no reason for that, because
okay.
The relationship between those countries, all five of those countries and South Africa, was very good, and there was no real threat and no need for external or to make use of the host country's defense systems or policing systems. Well, what happened was that in the diplomatic areas where we stay, I would say there's an increase in policing and patrolling of those areas, because that is where the families and the schools is located. So that was logic why there's a higher involvement of the host countries' defense systems and security systems. But we were not making use in any of our countries of the host countries' forces.
Because if you go to Seoul, for instance, in South Korea, or you know Tokyo and things, and you look at the American embassies, there's uniformed US Marines all over the place. It's quite a thing.
Every American embassy though is protected by the US Marines.
Even
one of their traditional roles,
so to speak.
Look, I have a friend in my martial arts. He's like my immediate senior. He works for the CIA, and he runs the whole of Southeast Asia for the CIA, but he's in Bangkok, and he speaks Japanese and Thai fluently. But he used to be in charge of all the security of the security systems of every U.S. embassy before he before he became sort of Southeast Asian representative. He used to travel to every embassy in American embassy in the world and check their security systems. He was also the only guy who was allowed to work on the ambassador's computer. So nobody else was allowed to access to that computer except him. And just interesting. Yeah, I don't know if that's something unique to the U.S. embassies, where they have your military attaché is probably working for the CIA, and your security of the embassy is probably in the hands of the U.S. Marines. I mean, there's lots of great movies on Netflix about like Benghazi. I think it's called 13 Hours, where the U.S. Special Forces, I think the Green Berets, had to keep that embassy alive while they were under attack by sort of jihadists for 13 hours to try and keep the ambassador alive. But there's lots of interesting videos about that, hey? Did you ever watch that one of, what's it called? Rules of Engagement, about the attack on the embassy they had in, was it Somalia or Sudan or somewhere like that? Anyway.
Yeah.
Now, there's a lot of romantic connotations also, if I can call it like that, stories. And the Americans do their security approach is different from ours, and they do their business different from most other countries, but they are in other situation than us. There's hardly a country where there's not people that is not for the USA in that country. And they, cells in Malaysia, on a regular basis, there was protesters and protesting activities and security risk for the embassy. We were aware of that, and we often was part of if you pick up something, to get more information and to be aware of what is going on, not to get involved in civilian actions against the embassy. So yeah, but I must admit, in the movies, it looks very very romantic, and everyone wants to say, I want to be a military defense attaché, or I want to end up in an embassy. But not all. It's not like that all the time, and it is hardly ever like that.
One of the interesting things about the Philippines is everywhere there are security guards. And they dress up like they dress to the nines. They dress up like policemen. They have lots of badges, and they all have guns, all of them. So every single shop you go to, whether it's a KFC or a McDonald's or a shopping mall or a 7-Eleven, there's a security guard standing outside, and he's armed with a pump-action shotgun, or you can see he's got a 6-gun strapped to his waist. Or lots of guys have the Colt 45 1911, from the American Army. But the Philippines is full of armed guards, although there's not much violence here at all compared to, say, South Africa. I mean, maybe they have, in our province anyway, which is probably the size of the Western Cape, probably have about 6 murders a month, whereas in the Western Cape you have about 100 a week.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean,
it's bizarre. You never see armed security. Like really? Even the cash in transit, the guys just carry batons, and they might carry like a shock stick or one of those like gas pistol things.
They're all armed to the teeth there.
It's here. The banks, like the security in like banks and things like that, they use the police. You go into the bank and there's 2 police officers inside.
Okay.
And the bigger banks more. and so it's, that kind of, like kind of armed robbery and things here is pretty much unheard of. If there's something, it'll be on the news for months. They'll be like going on about it. Yeah, it's the only people that you really see that are armed here are the police and the military, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Louis,
Their
do
doctrine
you?
is different.
Sorry.
I said their doctrine regarding that, let's say, civilian protection and activities is
Yeah.
differ from our country.
Yes.
And I'm surprised, John, to hear about the many and how well armed they are in the Philippines, because in Malaysia, you are not supposed to have weapons. It's not allowed. Indonesia, the same. And
Yeah.
Brunei, Jerusalem, even more. There was no weaponry in civilian hands, as far as I have it in Brunei, ever.
Yeah,
And
no, I think they're very influenced by
very
US,
strict
by the
control.
US, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very strict control.
Yeah.
In fact, I would say living in the Philippines is like living in the 1950s. Do you, I don't know if you remember back in the day when we had cinemas, and at the beginning of the movie, they used to play the national anthem, and you had
Yeah.
to stand to attention while the national anthem played. It's like that in the Philippines still. So if the shopping mall opens at 10 a.m., at 10 a.m., the national anthem will sound out, and everyone in the shopping mall stands to attention and holds their hand on their heart, and and nobody moves. When I first got there, my girlfriend was telling me, stand still. I didn't recognize the national anthem. I just thought it was pipe music somewhere. And I suddenly realized I was the only guy in the whole shopping mall who was walking around, and she was like desperately trying to get me to stand still. And I didn't understand what was going on. But it's like that. Yeah, it's like the 1950s. I promise you. It's wonderful. Actually, now I realize, okay, it's 9:58. I must get ready to stand to attention, because at 10 o'clock the music's going to start. And wherever you are in the Philippines, at 10 o'clock in the morning, the national anthem goes out and everyone stands to attention. Nobody moves. It's quite amazing.
Yeah.
Louis, I know that they do it in Singapore, but like Remembrance Day, closest Sunday to November the 11th. Does Malaysia do things?
Yeah, that type of parades was usually managed by the different embassies. So Remembrance Day was the unwritten responsibility of the British embassy.
Okay.
A very high standard, very the Malayans were supporting that and attending that. So it's a foreign thing, or it's not applicable to us. Well attended and supported, but managed by the different embassies. Anzac Day and Remembrance Day and a number of other activities. Even in Penang, there was a yearly activity which the British arranged for the naval people that was killed in the conflict in the Second World War. And very interesting how Malaysia supports that and the other countries. So it is really it is an international thing, those parades, and well attended and supported.
Yeah, here for Remembrance Sunday, we have obviously the Taiwan is involved, and then Commonwealth, it's UK, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and then the Netherlands, they come in, and the US. And this year, for the first time since 2005, the chief South African diplomat will go to Remembrance Day. The last time was 2005.
Really?
Yeah.
Who's currently that person? Can you name it?
Yeah, his name is Graham Anderson.
Graham Anderson. Is he stationed there?
Yeah, yeah. They get sent out for 3 years at a time.
Okay, so he's from DIRCO,
Yeah, yeah,
the official ministry for defense,
yeah,
for foreign relations.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he's probably been here about 18 months now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was, yeah, I was surprised because I first met him at Anzac Day in
Yeah.
yeah, he went to Anzac Day, and then we spoke to him and we told him about Remembrance Day, and we said like it would be appreciated if he came, and I've heard that he has said no, you'll definitely go. So
Yeah.
that's a positive a
But
positive
that's
thing.
the right way, Mark. That's the
Yeah,
right way to go when you are in a foreign country.
yeah,
Link up with your High Commission and embassy and get them involved. Then there's support in a sense as well. And at the end of the day, a good recognition of
yeah,
of an international system and habit that we are following, a
yeah.
custom that we need to keep in place.
Yeah. So I don't know what it is with the others. The other, when I spoke to them from like 2006 onwards, was absolutely no interest.
What about
And
the French, Mark? You'd think with their long history of French Indochina.
nothing French aren't involved. Because it's I suppose I mean obviously in World War II there was in French Indochina there was involvement, but out here in the Pacific there was no.
The Vietnam War and all that.
Yeah, Vietnam War, but it's in for instance, I mean in like in Taiwan, there were we had Australian POWs, we had British POWs, we
Right,
had
right.
Canadians. There were even South Africans. And that's like so. On Remembrance Day, I mean, this is what used to get me about like the South African diplomatic mission not pitching up is that the South African flag flies on Remembrance Day, and there's names of South Africans next to the name. You can see the nationality on the wall of remembrance there,
Yeah.
and nobody would pitch. So we used to get a bit pissed off about it because we had guys here. And then also the British Pacific Fleet. The British Pacific Fleet had a very big Commonwealth element to it. So there were, in Operation Iceberg, which was the Battle of Okinawa, we had a South African naval personnel. There were at least 100 that took part in that battle. And their job was, kind of to drive a wedge between Okinawa and Taiwan to stop the Japanese aircraft on Taiwan being able to get across to attack the American landings. So, I mean, we did lose a pilot out here. And
It's like I find very little interest from U.S. military and Navy veterans for Remembrance Day. Very little interest, no motivation. Because I've been trying to drum up support for a Remembrance Day ceremony here at the World War II shrine that we have near where I live, and the response has been very half-hearted, like not really interested. So I don't know. I think I'll probably do something on my own.
Yeah.
But I remember in Cape Town we had in Adley Street there by the War Memorial. We had a 21 gun salute. They had the old I don't know what were they 25 pounders. We had I think 7 21 pounders that used to fire 3 times and set off all the car alarms and make all the windows rattle in in Cape Town. And the US Embassy were there, the guys in Marine Corps uniforms. The smartest uniforms were the French Embassy guys in their I think the French Foreign Legion or whatever. They were very, very smart looking. And the South Africans were all there. I remember they used to always put us Rhodesian Light Infantry guys together with 3-2 Battalion. We used to march with the South Africans. But, you know, Cape Town, I must say, the all Delville Wood and, you know, which they had in the gardens at the Delville Wood Memorial, and November the 11th for World War I and World War II were very well attended and very well organized. The Moths, of course, were very involved, and then we'd always end up afterwards at the Dukes or Cape Town Highlanders mess, you know, at the castle. I miss that. I miss those events.
Because we have, I'm just trying to think. We start off with Anzac Day, because the Kiwis and the Aussies put on Anzac Day.
Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
And then the Americans do Memorial Day, which is, I think that's towards the end of May. And
they call it Armed Forces Day or something. Yeah.
And so we go to that, you know, to support them. It's kind of like we'll go spend time with the VFW and go support their event. Then in June we have a one that's kind of unique to Taiwan, which is the commemoration of the executed aircrews. You know, the Japanese used to often execute aircrew that was shot down, Allied aircrew.
Sure.
And so that's at the old Taipei prison. That's where they used to execute them. And so it was mainly American, but we go to that. And then what we call FIPO Day, VJ Day, in the middle of August, we do that. Sure. And then November, the closest Sunday to November 11th. Yeah. So these.
And that is not interesting. I think it is good to notice how involved is the Asian countries also in all these remembrance days and special military days. And right over the world, again, a proof of taking hands and accommodating each other, and a new way to go. And again, I want to say that the defense systems is not there to fight. It is to protect your country. Yeah. And if there is fights, it is conducted and arranged by other people, the political people. They make each other angry, and then we bite the bullet. And that's why there's a good relationship between soldiers, and we can easily interact and mingle with our fellow soldiers from other countries.